Oh, I guess it's time to do a little update. I could have done another teaching video today with a lot of my friends. I'll start with the little talk I had with some of my friends. I was sitting with a lot of my homeless friends, the ones you've seen already on many of the videos. And it's interesting because oftentimes they will bring up the conversation about the Bible, about God, about a lot of things. And when they bring it up and ask me questions, it becomes like a little fellowship meeting. But it was interesting because my friend Mondo, he had some questions about it, and he had a Christian Catholic upbringing, Mondo. And Mondo struggles like a lot of my friends, but he was asking about John the Baptist, and they cut his head off, John, and so I told the whole story. I said, you know what happened, Mondo? And I taught it before, but I said the king Herod, he was married to his brother Philip's wife, and John the Baptist was preaching against it. Herod, speaking to authorities, you are doing something wrong or illegal. You have your brother Philip's wife. I said, and Herod the king was afraid of John the Baptist, but yet the wife didn't like John's preaching. So one time, the stepdaughter of Herod, which was the daughter of the wife, her name is Salome. I said, and she did, it says in the Bible, like a sensual dance. I said, and it could have been like a strip dance at a club or something. I said, and the king, it was like a lap dance almost type thing. And the king said, oh, I'll give you anything up to half of my kingdom. And I said, and that stripper, the stepdaughter, asked the mom, who didn't like John the Baptist, what should I ask for, Mom? She said, the head of John the Baptist on a platter. And Mondo, that was the part he was bringing up. They brought his head, John, on a platter. So I explained the story. I said, and that's how that happened. And Mondo was asking a lot of questions. And the others were sitting there, and that's good. And he didn't know. He said, is that the same John the Baptist that is the John the disciple? I said, well, no, Mondo. John the disciple, or the apostle, that's a different John than John the Baptist. But the John the apostle wrote the Gospel of John, the first, second, and third John. Those are three little letters in the New Testament, and also wrote the book of Revelation. And he was banned on the Isle of Patmos because Nero tried to martyr John, the disciple, and he boiled him in oil, history tells us, and then he was banned to an island called Patmos, and that's when he wrote the book of Revelation. And it was just good. These are stories of friends and people that are in struggles. And so it went on for a while, and I'm glad. And it was, in a way, it's fellowship. But I wasn't sure I would do an update because these are all things I've taught before, and these updates only go up once because they're news. But because we had just breaking news, some of the news sites are not showing it yet, and so I read the actual source from the New York Times. I read it from the New York Times online. The Southern District of New York, they did a raid on Trump's personal lawyer by the name of Cohen. And the New York Times is reporting that the raid was a referral by Robert Mueller, and it might have to do with the FEC, the election, possible election crime. What are they looking into? The New York Times reported they seized personal documents between this lawyer by the name of Cohen, who is Trump's personal lawyer, and also documents related to any payments to the porn star Stormy Daniels. This is so ridiculous. Supposedly, Mr. Mueller and his investigation uncovered things. And supposedly, if you made this payment to a porn star to keep silent, you could find a way that that's a violation of like campaign contribution thing. And for them to have done the raid, I'll give you two quotes from lawyers, not from me, that are saying it was wrong and possibly illegal to take confidential information from a lawyer, which you could have subpoenaed and not done a raid. And because a lawyer has special privileges, meaning client-lawyer privileges, when you seize things like that in a raid, there are other things that you'd have to go through. But it just shows me that this is what you would refer to now as a fishing expedition, which in my mind, the same New York office that did not charge Harvey Weinstein when they had evidence, because Mr. Weinstein is a big contributor to liberal causes, democratic causes, and they went out of their way to not charge Mr. Weinstein criminally, but yet they were going to bring a civil suit, but yet now you're funding a raid, an FBI raid, over something like this. Now I'll give you the important news. The last week, we had people that were poisoned, and now it's questioned whether they were poisoned. But these were former Russians who then became spies, if you will, against Russia. And it was reported by the British government that they were poisoned with a particular poison that only Russia could produce. I read an article from the actual person poisoned, who was like the niece and the man that were poisoned, who said she thought they were actually ate bad fish that night, and it would have nothing to do with poisoning, the person poisoned. Then I read another article by the top poison specialist in the investigation in the laboratory in Britain, who also said, we have no idea what it is. Now, if you have that possibility, and why is that an important thing? Because the U.S. expelled diplomats. And Russia, I saw both Putin and I saw an ambassador or a Russian official deny strongly. If they were involved in it, I couldn't figure out why they would be so mad. Others said it might have been a setup. It might have been a setup. Now, this plays into what just happened also in Syria. You had another chemical poison gas release in Syria. And the ones that have gone on over the last few years, some have questioned whether or not it's anti-Assad people that are purposefully doing this. Meaning people that want the U.S. to go in and to do more in Syria might be purposefully doing this. Israel struck Syria. Israel air raid hit and killed some people as a retaliation, and now the media, many in the media are saying, will Trump do something? I saw actual pictures of the kids that were supposedly poisoned. These are unverified pictures that the media is now posting. You have Mr. Trump saying, Assad the animal. You have people like John McCain saying, we're going to do something. I believe Putin and Russia, if all of this is manipulation, just like in some of the things you see within our confines of the U.S., other countries who feel like maybe leadership is being manipulated to start a war, you might have a war. You might have one. And I said, I don't know when these things are going to happen, but if the U.S. is actually being manipulated, and I find it amazing, I watched a very liberal show called Democracy Now! The other night, and it was an amazing thing to watch because they were defending a particular a Latin American leader who just got charged. Lula was his name. But the reason it was very amazing is this liberal news show had this man who has been charged in another country in Latin America, South Central America, and he said, I was set up by the media, I was set up by the courts, and the judges, this liberal talking on Democracy Now!, said the judges set everything up to find criminal charges against me. And as I listened to this man by the name of, I think his name was Lula, but another one also got elected after him. They went after her as well. It was almost a narrative that you could give to what's going on in this country at this time. But it was from the liberal perspective, and he was saying we were set up. Now, to put all this together, if we are doing things, or our media is showing highly questionable pictures of kids that were poisoned, and if these are fake pictures, I saw some just last week that were posted by Anonymous on Facebook, and they showed how many of the pictures of the kids that were so-called poisoned were actual pictures of kids that were set. They were in a setting to do that. And our media has been saying, why won't Trump do something on Russia? I heard very honest, intelligent, liberal people say the only reason he's not doing something is because he must have something that's going to blackmail him. The other thing is, this could lead to a real war if we're allowing manipulation to go down a road that's going to go to a real hot war with Russia. I think this is real dangerous, and as I read some of the reports the last few days, and I watched it unfold, if you can have manipulation before any action is taken against, quote, the animal Assad, the leader of Syria, who's being backed up by Putin, you have to make sure. And as I watch the media say, we know beyond a shadow of a doubt, and yet you have other people saying this is a setup. After Iraq, which was a war that destabilized that whole part of the world till this very day, that whole war was based on false intelligence that was purposefully made to deceive the British intelligence agencies and the United States intelligence agencies in order to start a war, which happened, the Iraq War under George Bush. So as I look at everything, and as I look at people who say, whether it's on a small scale, that wait a minute, there's manipulation going on, and then you have the arm of government. Whether or not the raid that just took place on Trump's lawyer is legitimate or not, I really don't know. But to do a raid, and the New York Times reported it has to do with payments or information of Stormy Daniels, is utter nonsense. It's utter nonsense. And if people believe, wait a minute, you have taken the media and you have taken politics and you are doing stuff that is out of the boundaries of what your mandate is, what do you think other countries like Russia? The only reason I can imagine Putin and Russia were so mad about the so-called poisoning of the British spies, the Russian British spies, is because it's not true. There'd be no other reason they were so mad about that. And then what's going on right now is very possibly a setup. It's very highly possible that Assad did not release chemical weapons. It would make no sense because they were already winning in that particular city that this happened. But it's possible that the other forces who are fighting Assad have some of this stuff. And with the history that I just explained, for the media to be trumpeting, what will you do next? Why are you going so easy? You could be looking at a real hot war that could lead to a World War III. And I find that amazing. I find it amazing that we're at that point right now. So I'll do this as the update because that would be the breaking news. Some news sites are not even updated yet. Fox has got all types of stuff that really honestly means zero. But I went to the New York Times and that's a breaking story today. I would simply say that there was an attack on a military base in Syria, but it came from Israel. Israel fighter jets went in, and now the media is playing into this. What will we do now? I would say the odds that this is a setup, if you would call it a false flag, I would say the odds are high that that's what this is going on. But now you're in the news cycle. You have people questioning. And maybe Mr. Trump is even falling for it by saying animal Assad. I looked at some of the actual pictures of the children that were supposedly poisoned. They look a lot like pictures that have later, from these last few years, been shown to have kids. Sadly enough, some have done propaganda in that way. So I would just say that that's the danger. If you think manipulation on a small scale, going after political enemies, this whole thing about the payment to a porn star means zero. Means zero. And if the Southern District of New York and that office felt it was necessary to do a raid, and to do a raid in the way you didn't subpoena records, but you took records from lawyer and his clients, that steps over a particular boundary that you're not allowed to step over. But the people that are saying, wait a minute, these certain things are wrong, how do you think they would feel if they were wrong? Said, but we have the power to do it. Now put that on a national scale. Put that on the national scale. Putin and the people in Russia, some of them are sincerely saying, you guys are setting us up for something. And they're not going to sit back and take it on the broader global scale. So I'll do that as the little update. It was a good talk I had. The next day, maybe tomorrow or the day after, I'll post the actual teaching, the next teaching post, which is going to be me and a bunch of my friends who were talking just the other day. So that's just a little update. If you want righteousness in society, we have to make sure that we're looking at things that are important. Okay? What's happening on a world scale, that's an important thing. Nobody justifies the abuse of citizens. Meaning, if a country, whether it's Turkey, who is a so-called ally of ours, or whether it's Assad in Syria, nobody justifies the oppression of people. But we also don't justify the manipulation of Western powers with a complicit media to possibly start a war. Many people in this country, after some of the numbers of people that were killed in the Iraq war, between a few 100,000, some numbers said up to almost 1 million. And that was all on false intelligence. You would think most Americans would say that was an atrocity what happened because we were manipulated, either willingly or unwillingly, to kill people. Most Americans today will tell you that was a good thing that we did. The murder of people, unjustified, based on false intelligence, with the media, the corporate media complicit in that, and they're doing it again. Okay? That's the update.